Old school RPG players know the pain of having to grind experience points in countless battles just to be strong enough to take on the next big boss. And man, could that be tedious. Fortunately for all you RPG fans, there are plenty of games that don't require you to mindlessly accumulate points just to make it through to the next part of the story. So here are 6 of the best RPGs where thankfully you don't need to grind XP. Undertale is an atypical RPG in a lot of ways, and it's also one where grinding isn't necessary. In fact, you don't even have to battle, period. If you go down the pacifist route, your goal is to avoid gathering XP altogether and instead figure out how to talk down the monsters who are trying to fight you so you can leave peacefully. It's a great subversion of the RPG formula, and a large part of why the game has become so revered. That being said, if you're looking to go down the more genocidal paths of the game, you may have to grind just a little bit, but let's just say you might have a bad time if you do. Most of the Elder Scrolls games can be played without having to needlessly grind. Sure, you may come across a dragon or a giant that's a bit harder to beat at certain levels, but for the most part, like in the more recent entries, such as Skyrim, most enemies scale with your level, so grinding isn't a requirement. So that means that even if you were to, say, play the game by only using your fists, you'd still be able to survive out there in the cold, harsh world of Tamriel without grinding your way to the top. And if we're talking about Bethesda-made RPGs, we might as well talk about Fallout, since everybody else is lately. Games such as Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas don't really have much in the way of level scaling, but what matters more than your level is the gear that you're wearing. With the right guns, armor, and healing items, you should be able to survive most of what the nuclear wasteland can throw at you. Plus, the level cap for these games are usually fairly low, so as long as you keep exploring, you should be able to hit max level relatively quickly. The Mass Effect series could be considered more of a shooter franchise than an RPG, but you do level up and make tough choices, so it fits in here. Even though you're battling sentient intergalactic spaceships capable of annihilating entire civilizations, Commander Shepard doesn't need to fly around grinding XP to level up their commanding abilities. By simply playing the game, you should be more than powerful enough to shoot any hostile life forms that you come into contact with. The only thing you may have to grind are the conversations with the crewmates that you want to have a little bit of space lovin' with. Chrono Cross, the sort of sequel to Chrono Trigger, barely gives you the opportunity to grind, thanks to its unique leveling up system. Hell, even to a certain degree, Chrono Trigger could be beat without having to grind too, but Cross's mechanics in particular make grinding pointless, since your stats stay static until you defeat the next boss. You will get a little bit of a bonus from fighting regular enemies, but at a certain point, there's no real reason to fight every single monster that you encounter. Just beat a boss and go along your merry way. Finally, in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Geralt will come across all sorts of tough and terrifying abominations. But no matter how strong a monster can be, grinding never really becomes a viable option for keeping this Witcher alive. The best way to take down baddies isn't by racking up experience points. Instead, you're more likely to succeed by learning the ins and outs of the combat mechanics. Just by figuring out how to fight and use your potions and oils to effectively slay monsters, you should be able to keep Geralt alive. And even if you did want to grind up a beefier Witcher, most side quests stop giving meaningful XP after a certain point, making grinding even less practical. That being said, you should still do those side quests, not for XP, but for the excellent storytelling of CD Projekt Red's masterpiece. Got an RPG that's not particularly grindy? Why don't you tell us about it in the comments below? And be sure to check out thegamer.com for all your gaming needs. I'm Jamie Latour, and we'll see you next time.